Well, hello again, everyone. Today we're going to talk about anger management with your teenager. In previous videos, we talked some about the process of dealing with the angry teenager in the heat of the moment, some strategies for helping to diffuse that anger. But today we're going to talk about some preventative maintenance or preventative ideas. And we're going to focus on the topic of emotional intelligence and how you can help your teenager to develop their emotional intelligence so these angry outbursts don't happen in the future. So let's get started. Well, hello again, everyone. My name is Jim White, and I'm an author, coach, and the founder of the Family Enrichment Academy. And today we're going to be talking about emotional intelligence and how you can help your teenager with their emotional intelligence, which can help with anger management. The topics around how can we help and support our teen from an anger management standpoint. But before we dive into that, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you on behalf of your teenager and your family for your interest in becoming a better person and a better parent. It's that commitment to being better that really makes us move forward and helps our families to move forward and enjoy more peace, joy, warmth, and love within the home, which is the real target here at the Family Enrichment Academy. And then secondly, I wanted to share with you, I do have a gift for you as well today for popping in and watching this video. What I have, it's a free resource, and it's 10 questions you should never ask your teenager. Think of these as like conversation killers. These are the ones that shut them down. And then along with that, I have 10 great questions. These are the conversation starters, the ones that get your teenager to open up. This resource, I put it together because one of the most common complaints I get from parents is the idea that their teens just won't open up and talk to them. So anyway, there's a link below. You can check it out, download this resource, and I guarantee you start incorporating these questions and these types of questions into your conversations with your teen. You'll have some amazing conversations by tomorrow. So anyway, check that out. The link's down below. So we're going to be talking about emotional intelligence today, and really there's two key areas. The first one's around self-awareness and then self-regulation. So those are the two key topics we're going to talk about throughout the rest of this video and how you can help your teen with that, which again will help them with that anger management. So let's jump into those topics. So the first step I'd like to invite you to consider is the idea and how emotional intelligence and working towards that could help you to build connection. And actually, let me back up a little bit. In order for you to be able to influence or empower your teenager around this topic of emotional intelligence, you're going to have a pretty strong connection with them. If that connection is weak and they don't feel that strongly connected, they're not going to listen to you, or they won't be willing to maybe embark upon this journey of seeing how we can improve our emotional intelligence. So connection is critical. And we have a lot of other videos on how to build and develop that connection. So that's really first step, is that you need to really have a good connection so that you can then be in a position to influence and empower your teenager. So that's really the first step. Then the second thing I would throw out is this whole idea of looking at emotional intelligence and maybe looking at that as like a growth opportunity could be a great way to build connection as well, just that exercise. And what I'm talking about, and I've thrown this out before, is one of the great ways to build connection is to have a shared experience where you learn something together with your teenager. Some of the other examples I've thrown out is maybe you go take a cooking class together, for example, or you do martial arts together. The premise being that you learn a new skill or learn something new with your teenager. Well, this topic of emotional intelligence can be that same type of vehicle. This is something new that you could learn about together with your teenager, and you can position it that way. Suggest to them that you've heard about it. Maybe ask them, have you ever heard of emotional intelligence? And there's probably a pretty good chance they might have at some point during their schooling, depending on what classes they may have taken. But if they haven't, say, well, this is a new topic that you have recently heard about and that you've heard that it can have a big impact on how effective and successful a person can be, and connect it to things that are important to them. If they're an athlete, for example, you can say, well, maybe learning more about and being more emotional intelligent may help you to be a better player or a better athlete. Or if their school's important, it may help you to be more accomplished and do better in school. and by the same time connect it to something that you're trying to improve on. Again, all under the premise that maybe you should embark upon a journey of growth around emotional intelligence with your teenager and make it a joint effort, if you will. And that's a great way to build connection and sort of engage them and bring them into this conversation. And then you could start, which actually emotional intelligence was, this concept was first introduced in like 1995 by a gentleman by the name of Daniel Goldman. So that's a name, you might do a little Google search on that, and you can find some articles maybe, or a book or two, because there's been several books written on it over the years. And maybe that's where you start with your teenager. You know, you guys do a little research, find some information, and start to, again, embark upon learning and growing around this whole idea of emotional intelligence. So that's a way we can use it as a way to build connection. Now, what we'll move from here, we'll talk about, and I mentioned there's two specific areas. First, around self-awareness and self-regulation. So I'm going to share a couple thoughts on those two things as well. So let's dive into that now. So now let's talk for a few minutes more specifically about how these ideas of self-awareness and self-regulation can work with your teenager, specifically around anger management, you know, kind of back to that specific topic. So the first one is around self-awareness, and it's actually the first step in the emotional intelligence process, is becoming more self-aware. And with that, there's really kind of two aspects to that around anger management. First one being just an acknowledgement that becoming angry doesn't serve the person. And so you might bring that up to the teenager, or I would suggest that you bring that up to the teenager. You could say something along the lines that, you know, I've noticed that you get angry from time to time, and then bring it back to yourself, saying, for me, I have found that when I get angry, things typically don't work out very well. I'll say something that I regret later, or damages relationships, or just doesn't work that well. And then ask the teen, how do you feel like it works for you when you get angry? Again, the purpose of that question is to get them to be a little bit self-reflective and self-aware of how anger is serving them. My guess is, again, if you ask that and let them have that percolate a little bit, they're going to acknowledge the fact that anger doesn't always serve them that well. And so that's the first step of awareness, is that acknowledgement that anger, they do get angry, and sometimes it doesn't help them or doesn't move the situation forward. So once that acknowledgement's there, then the second sort of line of questioning is around, well, how do you know that you're starting to get angry, or how can you catch yourself heading down that path? Again, it's an awareness question. And so you might ask them, well, what kinds of things make you angry? What happens in your body physically? What do you notice that's going on with you when you start to feel that way? You know, are you aware of it? You know, again, what sensations are you having? What are you thinking about as you go through that process? So again, these are all awareness questions to help to raise the awareness with the teenager, so that they can be more in tune with when they're heading down that path. So that's that first step in emotional intelligence, and let them stew with that a little bit. And maybe something happens next week, and again, after everything's calmed down, you can go back to them and revisit it. Say, hey, I noticed you got angry when XYZ happened. What was going on for you? Again, you could ask them, how did it help you or serve you, or did not serve you? And then what did you notice as you were going down that path? So again, we're just trying to build awareness and help them to catch themselves. And then the next step is to throw in the idea of self-regulation. So as awareness grows, then you can start to ask, well, what could you do if you find yourself starting to drift into an angry place or an angry mindset, to help bring you back, or help to regulate that, or have you diffuse that anger? So you start asking questions around that. You know, what could you do? They may feel a little stuck. If they do, you can throw out some ideas for what you do. When you start to get angry, maybe you stop and take 10 deep breaths, for example, or you do something physical to sort of burn off the energy. You go out for a walk or a run, that sort of thing. So again, throw out some ideas. And actually one of them that we like to work on here with the Family Enrichment Academy is the whole idea of perspective, and the idea of changing perspective and asking questions like, how else could I look at this? That would give me a different perspective, which might then shift that experience from one of anger to maybe one of compassion, let's say, depending on the scenario. So that's a great question, is how else could you look at this in more of a compassionate way? So start throwing in and introducing that idea of being able to shift or regulate that emotion. So again, this is a long process, and it takes time for your teen and again for you to work through that and hopefully grow in that area as well. So, but those first two steps, especially around anger, introduce the idea of awareness, being more aware, and then shift to the idea of how can I regulate, how can I shift that? And then actually maybe some point you'll find a scenario where they've caught themselves and were starting to go down a path towards anger. They were able to catch themselves and shift out of that. That's a great opportunity to acknowledge and validate their personal growth and really celebrate that victory of them being able to shift back out of that anger into a more loving or compassionate mindset would allow them to move a situation forward that maybe they wouldn't have been able to if they would have continued down that path of anger. So anyway, those are the two ideas of self-regulation and then being able, or self-awareness and self-regulation as being two key steps in anger management. So to recap, today we've been talking about anger management for your teenager, and we've introduced this idea of emotional intelligence. And there really were three key points, if you will, that we talked about. The first one being that the whole process of learning about and diving into emotional intelligence could be a great way for you to connect with your teenager. Make it a joint process, something that you can learn together. And actually there could be a lot of benefit for yourself as well. So step number one, turn it into a project that you guys can work on together. And then the other 2 points where we talked about the idea of self-awareness and then also self-regulation. And those two are critical components when it comes to anger management and how those can serve the teen and again you in being able to diffuse anger when it starts to come up and help to move a situation forward. So anyway, hope you found some value in that. And actually I'd love to have you connect and share ideas and thoughts and questions down in the comments below. I just really encourage you to engage with our community. I mean, part of our mission here at the Family Enrichment Academy is to build a community of what I like to call the FEA heroes. And these are parents just like you, parents that are taking a stand for the power that love can have in their family and adopting a growth mindset can have. So again, I'd love for you to engage and just become a part of that community. One other thing, just a reminder, we do have that free resource for you, those 10 questions that you should never ask your teenager, along with those 10 great questions, the ones that are conversation starters. So again, there'll be a link down in the comments or the show notes below. So check that out, download it. I think you'll really get some value out of that. So as always, it's truly an honor to be able to serve you as you move along your parenting journey. And again, I just can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to check out what we're doing and just engage. And again, hopefully move you along that journey that you're on to become a better parent and a better person as well. So until next time, remember our motto, a change in perspective changes everything.